Hey everyone, it's good to see you back. Our build today focuses on maximising our Song of Flame without needing to actually fully use it. And while this might sound strange at first, it makes a lot of sense with how the super works. So today, we're going to take the buffs our super provides, and then funnel all that energy into the VexMantle and Mantle Battle Harmony for a Persuade-O-Support build that's all about staying on top. So start with the exotic armor Mantle Battle Harmony with its exotic effect Absorption Cells. It states, a finer blows or weapon matching your equipped super damage type grant you super energy. When your super energy is full, you instead gain a temporary bonus to weapon damage of that type. With what we have in mind, Mantle Battle Harmony is going to provide both a damage buff and damage reduction buff, which will all accumulate into activating our super and enhancing our weapons along the way. Instead of actually using the super's abilities, we will instead just use our super's buffs instead, which is a constant 19% damage reduction and radiant, which can have its super effects extended upon kills made. The idea of becoming a walking world was something I've thought about for a while now, but never had the time to actually try it out until now, and it actually does really well on most content. For the second exotic, which is the VexMantle, with exotic effect, Timeless mythoclast, and Temporal and Limiter, it states, this weapon fires full auto when in its default firing mode. Defeating targets builds stacks of overcharge. Alternative weapon action, swap fire modes when fully overcharged. In alternative fire mode, hold the trigger to charge up and fire a more powerful linear fusion shot. With a number of recent buffs made towards Vex, it has become meta for absolutely blasting enemies to bits. With increased damage, a parkour deconstruction mod allowing us to debuff targets, and also getting a constant radiant effect, the Vex becomes insanely good with little effort needed by the player. Only issue with the build when using Vex is those that can't access the following weapon. For those who don't have Vex, I can see Sunshot and Skyburners being a good choice, as their damage can keep up with Vex, while also offering something a bit more different than what Vex does. With the exotics completed, we now have the aspects and fragments, which are the following. A Feed the Void, where defeating a target with an ability will grant you Devour. Bleak Watchers, where charging a grenade and then throwing it will create a status turret that slows and frees targets. A Facet of Sacrifice, where while having Arc, Solar, or Void buffs active, ability Final Blows grant you Darkness Transcendence energy. A Facet of Solitude, where landing rapid precision shots emits a 7 blast from the target. A Facet of Protection, where while surrounded by enemies, you become more resistant to incoming attacks. A Facet of Balance, where rapidly defeating targets with light abilities grants you melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with dark abilities grant you grenade energy. And a Facet of Dawn, where landing a charged melee hit will grant you Radiant. Powered melee final blows makes you and allies Radiant. So just for everyone watching this to understand, you do not need to have Prismatic to make the build work, as having just Serial Subclass instead with its given fragments is fine in my eyes. Prismatic is being used because of the customization option it gives, and how you can mix and match certain exotics for bigger effects along the way. With our setup in mind, we follow a simple and powerful formation that will provide buffs and debuffs while also allowing us to retain Mantle Battle Harmony's effect for as long as possible. As Mantle and Vex go hand in hand with a super, we don't really need to add Facet of Dawn unless you intend to have a constant Radiant up build for us and teammates alike. When you look at it closely, the build does really well as a supportive build even when we don't have much supportive items in play. Now having Facet of Solitude is a must for the build, as being able to weaken targets' damage and health via parkour deconstruction is a dangerous combo that can melt through bosses easily. I would also recommend having Facet of Protection as well, as you want to make sure you are tanky even when not in your super state, and then have balance to then tie everything up. A Sacrifice I would also recommend, but with a caveat. As we have status secondary and darkness abilities via melee and aspects, we can actually take this away depending on how often you use your transcendent state. Adding instead Facet of Purpose, Blessing and Awakening are going to be the best with providing a neutral play that the build can greatly benefit from, but only if you don't need the extra boost on hand. Now onto the mods and stats, this is what we went with. Resilience with ours at tier 10 for 30% damage reduction. Included in the stats, we do have Elemental Resistance mod, which will vary from element to element in game, with Facet of Protection also be included into the build. Our super will also be granting us a 90% damage reduction once active, so you do have plenty of room to play around here. A Discipline, we then have ours at tier 10 for a 1 minute 1 second cooldown via Storm Grenades. The build won't be using a grenade for kills, as we'll be mainly using it to create status turrets instead. This will give you room to play around with the stats and mods, as having a tier 10 is not required if you do have to feed the void aspect. However, our strength stat will be at a tier 4 for a 1 minute 53 second cooldown via Arcane Needles, and this one here will see play in the build for activated Facet of Dawn on hand. Now we only have 2 mods available for the melee recharge ability we have on hand, but we do have Transcendence available that will also bolster this stat quite easily over time as well. With the key stats looked into, we next have the mods that will be invested into making the build work throughout its usage. Starting with the head, we have Hands On, when netting a power melee kill will grant you super energy. Heavy and Ammo Finder, Reserves and Scavenger mods for our heavy weapon. Solar Siphon for creating auto power via solar weapons. Impact Induction ×2 for a 17% grenade buff. Momentum Transfer ×1 for a 12% melee buff. Charged Up ×1 for increasing the maximum stack of armor charges by +1. A Stasis Surge ×1 for a 10% stasis weapon buff. Time Dilation where armor charge decay rate is reduced. Outreach for a 12% reduced melee when using your class ability. And Bomber for a 12% grenade regen via class ability usage. Now, as we have covered our exotic primary weapon, I will then advise you to pick some super weapons for the build. What I recommend are all optional, so please keep this in mind. Our secondary will be Tanisha's Mastery with Chill Clip and Reverberation, a powerful sidearm that will help with champions I face, but most importantly it will be ideal when facing against mages and ultras. Since the build is using Vex and Solar Heavy for most encounters, I wouldn't say you are limited down to just using the weapon as shown. Instead, unless you want to stick with it, I see Breachlight with Bugless being helpful for triggering your Arcane Needles and Facet of Dawn together. This way, you can maintain a high damage flow for the build, even when your exotic and elemental do not match. Heavy with the Speologist with Target Lock and Deconstruction, which is a pretty powerful weapon to own. With it being a rapid fire frame and having a huge reserve to boot, this weapon can unleash hell like no other. Having Target Lock can allow a weapon to do a max of 40% increased damage, and then adding on Deconstruction can allow a weapon to auto refill when firing for long periods. Now on its own it's great, but adding this with Mantle Battle Harmony and our super can make things quite spicy over time. So to conclude what we have gone over, the VexMantle and Battle Harmony combo for this season is pretty amazing if you're after a build that can be used in PvP and PvE, but also inflicting high damage and fast super regeneration. While this isn't a uncommon to do, the majority of time players use Song of Flame is to purely destroy as much enemies as possible and create enough orbs for allies to use. However, we have decided not to really use our super at all, and rather just use these super effects to enhance us and our team instead, which honestly is a great alternative if you'd like to play supportive in any way or form. Just from watching the gameplay, you can see how adequate our super regen is over time, how we also get a damage bonus from reaching max super, and how upon our super activation, we can maintain that damage bonus but now get Radiant, Scorch and Ignitions, a weaken effect via particle deconstruction, increased damage reduction and Sever from our Fragments. And just to further expand on this, we can use Prismatic as well for a nice rotation of buffs and debuffs applied to a singular or multiple targets with great success. The only concern I can see this build suffering from is the lack of people having Vex, since it's a raid exclusive and it's a hard one to grind at best. So while this is great for all players who do have the Vex, others will need to opt into another solar weapon instead and then find a solar fusion or a fusion if you wish to use particle as well. Outside of that, this simple build will encourage players to use their super more, but at the same time not in the way you would think. If this sounds just for you, then have a go and comment your thoughts. So there we have it. I hope you all enjoyed the build breakdown. If you have any thoughts and content shared, then please leave a comment below, or if you enjoy the content and want more of these videos, then leave a like and a sub while you're here. A dim link for the build is located below in the pin section, and I do advise you to check out my playlist for more. It was great sharing today's video with you all, and I hope to see you again soon.